So here we are. We are thrilled to have this individual moderating this morning's Ford panel, Building a More Sustainable Future. He's an extraordinary talent. He's been to the top of the world. A lot of us can say that we felt like we've been on top of the world. He's actually been there. His images inspire us and his films captivate us. Please help me welcome, fresh off of a red eye from Los Angeles, no less. His film just premiered there. It is called The Rescue. He is a climber, photographer, Academy Award-winning filmmaker, and champion of our natural world. Jimmy Chin, welcome to the stage, please. Hey, good to meet you.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm still kind of bleary-eyed from the flight, but I'm very excited to be here today. I think, as she mentioned, I'm a filmmaker and a photographer, and really I've been focused on telling stories about the human potential and the human spirit, and really what we as humans are capable of achieving if we set our minds to something. I've always been inspired by the Ford story and Ford's history. I think of them as like the original kind of startup before startups were really a thing. And so I was really excited when I was asked to collaborate on the relaunch of the Bronco. And that's really kind of how I ended up, working with Ford. I'm also a professional climber and skier and mountaineer, so obviously I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, and I've really always believed that you take care of what you love, and so I've always kind of wanted to encourage people to get outdoors and experience the things that I've experienced and experience the sublime. But one thing about spending a lot of time in the outdoors, especially in the last 20 years, I've really seen, the impact and degradation of the outdoors, and particularly the impacts of climate change. And so, that's a topic that, I've been involved in and thinking about a lot and having a lot of conversations about. So, I think, the stakes are really high. And, I'm a parent. I think about what the world's going to look like in the future for my kids, for future generations. So obviously it's a huge concern for me. I think I've always believed, though, that individual action is hugely important, and I'm a big proponent of that, and what we do every day, how we can help. But I mean, let's be real, we can't just do it on our own. We need, the big companies out there, the automotive industry, to be on board in order to be able to move the needle on climate change. So I'm really excited to be able to host this panel with Ford. I'm just going to say, I'm kind of a skeptic, so, it might seem kind of ironic that, we have a huge automotive industry juggernaut talking about climate change. But what I think is interesting is, as I've been working with Ford, I discovered that they're doing so much behind the scenes, things that I had no idea about because they aren't advertising about it. So I'm assuming a lot of you don't either. And I think this is a good look into, what the potential is when, a company like Ford is, taking steps to protect the environment and, work on issues around climate change. So hopefully this will be enlightening for you. I'm sure it will be enlightening for me. And I'm going to invite my first panelist up here, Bob Holycross, who is the Vice President of Sustainability And you've been working on this issue for over 20 years, I understand.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
So welcome, please have a seat.
Jimmy, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
So let's dive into it. What sets Ford apart from other companies when it comes to sustainability?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jimmy. And again, first of all, thanks again for being here with us. Your journey and your story has been an inspiration for all of us. So having this opportunity to speak with you in the audience today is a real thrill for me and the folks at Ford. You know, I think, Jimmy, for us, what sets us apart is, you know, we're nearly a 120-year-old company. And so when you think about the journey we've been on with transportation, and, you know, while we didn't invent the automobile, putting the world on wheels, you know, in high volume and you know, introducing the freedom of movement for people all over the world, that's a legacy that carries a lot with it. So it goes all the way back to our founder, Henry Ford, in the early days as he was starting and did a lot of experimentation, even some with electrification at the time and with renewable materials into, you know, vehicle components and the like. But really, over the last 40 years or more, what's really been driving us and setting us apart has really been Bill Ford's leadership, Henry Ford's great-grandson, who's our executive chairman. Bill is a lifelong environmentalist. He's been very active in this space for a long time. And, you know, as we've been on this journey with Bill over the last 40-plus years, you know, resolving this tension between, you know, providing high-volume vehicles and that meet a variety of needs, and doing it in a sustainable way has been, you know, quite a journey for us. And now you fast forward to how technology has advanced, especially around electrification, and we have the intersection of really turning this vision into a reality. And for us, it's been consistent as well in terms of our messaging around the Paris Climate Accord and our endorsement of that, and also matching advocacy with a lot of the actions that we take.
Great. What do you think are the key challenges that the transportation industry has to overcome?
Yeah, you know, I think it's really threefold. And, you know, as we continue to advance our electrification plan, as I mentioned earlier, and, you know, our CEO, Jim Farley, laid out, you know, a vision for us that we're going to lead the electrification revolution. And so when you think about what it takes to really transform transportation and society to be able to move to, you know, a high-volume electrification ecosystem, there's going to need to, first of all, be a cultural shift. We're going to have to make sure that customers, both retail and commercial, understand that these vehicles can provide all the functionality that they've come to expect from Ford, and, you know, being able to do it on some of our most recognizable nameplates like Mustang and F-Series and Transit Commercial, we think is going to help change the culture around this and get people on board. But it's going to have to be more broad than just, you know, providing a zero emissions propulsion system. And to that end, the second piece is really around, when you think about sustainability and the full life cycle, what kind of a broader ecosystem do we have to have? So it's not just about when the vehicle is traveling down the road, but how are we manufacturing these vehicles? How are we bringing the materials into the vehicles? What is the energy that's used to power the manufacturing facilities? How does it work throughout our entire supply base? And then ultimately, at the end of life of the vehicles, how do we make sure that there's opportunities for recyclability and reuse so that we really have a closed loop system? And then finally, the third piece is really on scalability. So you think about a company like Ford and the reach that we have with our brand around the world. You know, the first adopters of the technology have blazed a trail, but we do need to get this in higher volume if we're going to truly make a difference and start to really address the impacts of climate change. So scalability is going to be a big thing. I think that's the unique opportunity for Ford, and we're just so excited to be on this journey with everybody.
Cool. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Jimmy, thanks again.
Yeah,
it's great
absolutely.
to be with you. All right, take care. Thanks, everybody.
So just to dig a little deeper into some of these topics, I wanted to invite our other panelists, Josh Boone, who is the executive director at Veloz, Cynthia Williams, who is the Ford's global director of sustainability and compliance, and Linda Zhang, the Ford F-150 Lightning chief engineer, which I think is an amazing job, and I want one. Hi, thanks for coming up here. So before we really dive into the discussion, I kind of wanted to just hear a little bit about your personal stories and what brings you here and what was that moment of kind of awakening that you all had on the issue of climate? I can start with you, Cynthia.
Well, happy to be here. For me, I've been with the company for over 30 years, and sitting with our climate scientists, I'll say probably 20 years ago, we look at the graphics to show business as usual, this is what happens. But if we work on our product plan and put that portfolio together, you could really address climate change in a way that really matters. And so to me, about 20 years ago, that's when it really, really stuck with me.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. I first got involved in climate and low carbon transportation back when Governor Schwarzenegger at the time was doing AB 32, which is known as the Global Climate Solutions Act. And really, we have to act now because time is, we can't waste time. And my organization's name is Veloz, which means fast in Spanish. So we are trying to drill right at the heart of the issue. Within climate, transportation electrification really pushed that forward really quickly. Being a Californian, the fires are devastating, and it's a real tangible way to see the devastating impacts of climate on our world. So that's what brings me here today.
Hi, glad to be here. And for me, sustainability is all about balance, not just on a personal level for ourselves and the resources, our personal resources around us, but really extending it to the shared resources on Earth. And a lot of that actually started with my parents. My parents are immigrants to the US, and the environment that I grew up in was with very limited resources. So with that, we learned very quickly that, and this was something that my parents did a great job in, is making sure that we reduced, reused, and recycled as much as we can, well before anyone even made that into a slogan. For us, it was more of a necessity because of the limited resources. So that I hold that very close to my heart. And then when I went into college, my roommate and a really good friend was an environmental engineer, and that exposed me to this idea of we can still progress technological advancements and progress, but at the same time still having responsibility for the environmental needs. And as an engineer particularly, that's something I'm really passionate about, is to bring technological progress while still maintaining the sustainable needs for the Earth. Because at the end of the day, we only have one Earth.
Absolutely. And how long have you been at Ford?
I've been at Ford for 25 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And
30, almost 30.
That's amazing. So I have a lot of friends and family who are interested in electrical vehicles, but have kind of stalled on going there. And I'm just curious, what your thoughts are on why this is the right moment. I mean, I have my thoughts, but I'm curious.
For me, I have the Mustang Mach-e at home, and it is one of the most exciting vehicles I've ever had. The best part I love is when I'm at a stop sign and you take off, you're gone. They're very exciting, very technology-driven inside. It's just exuberating for me, and to be in this business for the last 30 years, and we've been fighting to get these vehicles on the road, and just to see it come to fruition, it's just exciting for me.
Great. Well, Cynthia, I'm ready to put my Model 3 right next to your Mustang Mach-e, and let's hit the road. I think now is a really good time to go electric because we're benefiting from having a lot more consumer choice. So today we have over 70 makes and models of electric vehicles, and that has changed drastically in the last 5 to 10 years. So one thing we know is that people want choice. They want the ability to go for long drives, go in the mountains. They want small cars, they want SUVs, and the faster we can electrify everything, the better. So I think it's a really good time because we're just on the cusp of a whole handful of additional makes and models, like the Ford F-150 Lightning, a really exciting product, and the Mach-e. So choice is here now today. EVs are not a future thing. They're here, available, and ready to go. So I'm pretty jazzed up about the market and the opportunity going forward, and really at a high level, how this can really impact our movement to reduce our negative impacts on climate.
Yeah, and timing is perfect right now, right? Because technology and customer demand has really hit that pivotal point in the industry where it makes it not just a feasible product, but also a really viable product from a financial perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, from just a usage perspective. And you know, when we talk about hearts and minds, right, and that's one thing that is so important about what we're trying to do here, especially at Ford, trying to launch EV products around our most iconic vehicles, starting with the Mustang Mach-e, that performance brand that everybody knows and loves. Then the E-Transit, which is a great solution for our commercial vehicles. And then now the F-150 Lightning, which, I mean, it's part of the F-Series family. 44 years of America's best-selling truck. That's a lot of people that love it. And I think that's where we start with going down this route of changing hearts and minds. Particularly as you think about this product with the Lightning, which you know the team's done a really great job with, but it's really to provide our customers with that same solution that they had before, to be able to haul and tow and do all the things that they can do today, but elevating it even further with an and solution by giving them things that only electrification can bring. And it gives them that better solution with the Mega Power Frunk in the front of the vehicle where the engine used to be, giving them that space that they've never had to be able to use it as dry lockable storage or recreational fun, or even another area to work in, or even leveraging the battery to provide electrical power for our customers, whether it's on the go or at home as a backup generator, or just that performance of the vehicle, giving that fun to drive feel. 0 to 60 in mid-4 seconds is pretty fun, so I'm happy to line that up against your Model 3 and the Mach-e to see how that one goes. But I think that's really where we're trying to first get to that changing that cultural shift, right, to help our customers migrate to this vehicle and to a more sustainable vehicle, not just giving them a better product, but a more sustainable product. Recently, we just announced last week that we have over 150,000 reservations. So that's exactly going toward the comment of, you know, at least 150,000 Americans are ready for that cultural shift to move to an EV. And I think that's really important in why this is the right time.
I always think about the infrastructure surrounding, you know, electric vehicles, and you know, how do companies work with the government in terms of, you know, approaching sustainability in a broader sense, like that makes this technology and policy scalable?
We work with governments all the time. That's part of my work at Ford. We're pretty much the liaison between the government and Ford and its engineers, but we constantly work with them. I'm actually also on the council, Michigan Council for Climate Solutions as well, and so we're working with state governments as well to help them understand what's required in terms of infrastructure, what's required in terms of incentives to get consumers into the vehicles.
Well, I'm a big believer in working together. I think like with any large movement of this size, it takes a village, it takes all of us. So it's going to take federal government, local government, private industry, individuals. My organization, Veloz, is a public-private partnership. So we bring together all of those organizations really to push transportation and electrification forward. I mean, Jimmy, we're talking about one of the largest shifts since the Industrial Revolution. If our goal really is to transform how we move goods and people, that means we have to turn everything electric. And so we're talking about one of the largest shifts since that point in time. So we need all of you, I'm presuming many of you are believers, to really join this conversation and get behind it. But I think you noted charging infrastructure. So what we know is that there are 3 remaining barriers really to going all electric. That is upfront cost of electric vehicles, but what we know is cost is coming down faster than even the Department of Energy predicted. Number two, challenges around charging, and we can get into a conversation about that if you like. And last, but certainly not least, is there's a real need to really bring up awareness and education around the country. So what we see is that awareness at a high level is increasing. People know about electric vehicles because of all the good work that Ford and others are doing. But people have real questions, and so there's a real opportunity to educate them and really myth bust. People have questions about, where do I charge? How do I charge? How much does it cost to charge? How do I access charging? How do we ensure that we're truly implementing an electric for all vision? So there's a lot of exciting momentum, but there's also a lot of opportunity to further kind of push the ball forward.
Can you answer a couple? I'm really curious, the questions around the charging. I mean, what is the challenges there?
So one of the challenges is when people go purchase an electric vehicle, they just don't understand. It's very different than the traditional fossil fuel model where you go to a corner gas station and fill up. But there are opportunities that with electric vehicle charging that are not realized in traditional gasoline refueling. So some of the questions we get are, okay, so I'm going to buy a Mustang Mach-e. Where do I charge my Mustang Mach-e? There's opportunities at home. There's opportunities in the public domain, kind of level 2, mid-level charging, and then the so-called DC fast charging. And so for people just to understand where best to take advantage of which charging opportunity, I think is something that we have to educate on. And then just understanding, how to access the charging station. How do I pay? What does it cost? And so charging related nuances are the top barrier in moving this EV market forward. It's a whole nother summit just to talk about EV charging, but I'm glad you asked.
Okay. Slightly off script, but I was just curious.
No, I think that those are all really great points, particularly around the infrastructure and then also the financial incentives from the government as well. Just really help kind of bring that system up to the level where it can be more viable for electric vehicles. And I think the education bit that Josh, you mentioned, it goes a long way. And that's partly what we're trying to do, even at the corporate level, is to try to help that user experience so that customers understand, the different options around charging. And whether it's charging at home or whether it's charging on the go, really helping them understand that, with Ford, particularly on the F-150 Lightning, we're actually, with the extended range battery, we're actually providing a level 2 80 amp charger so our customers can get that charging done at home. And then also leverage that for the intelligent backup power. But then on the road, Ford has access to the largest charging network with over 63,000 charge plugs. So I think those type of things will definitely help, and I think infrastructure will definitely help a lot as well. And you guys also mentioned the barrier to entry in a way, and technology is coming down, just like Cynthia mentioned, and that helps with that initial investment. But in terms of cost of ownership for EVs, that's actually really great as well.
And we're going to, provide that technology in vehicle to help get consumers engaged and dedicated to zero emission vehicles as well.
Very cool.
Since we're talking about charging infrastructure, our country is about to invest, if we get this right, billions of dollars in public charging infrastructure. My home state of California is positioned to invest billions of dollars. It's not just about throwing hardware in the soil. It's about making sure we think wisely about where these DC fast chargers or level 2 chargers are placed. It's making sure that there's equitable access and entry. And so I think as a group of people here that are probably involved in that effort on some level, we want to not only make sure the money's secured, but we want to make sure that we do it wisely and smartly.
Great. And I mean, you brought something up I wanted to talk about. I mean, I think we have to look at this holistically and, in terms of equity, like how do we ensure that there's equity in this transition to electric vehicles, and electrification and how it can benefit all communities?
For me, I think it's built in Ford's DNA. It's part of in our purpose that we want to everyone to live their dreams and be able to get into vehicles that we built. I know if you think back when Ford was built, when Henry Ford built, he had the $5 a day workday. He had the moving assembly line. He wanted the folks that work for him to actually be able to get in the vehicles and drive them. That has not changed today.
It's really key if we're going to truly transform transportation. Equity must be central focus of our work. And at my organization, Veloz, we do an annual EV education awareness campaign called Electric for All. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go to electricforall.org. And really, equity has been a central focus of our campaign efforts from day one. So in 2018, we did a California statewide campaign called Opposites Attract. In 2019, we did a campaign called Kicking Gas, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this year, we did a campaign called 40 Million Reasons to Go Electric, kind of playing off of the 40 million Californians. And really, if you take a look at that campaign, from A to Z, the entire thing has an equity focus. And the whole idea is really to look at those top three barriers that I talked about. So upfront cost, how do we ensure there's equity there? That's incentive programs at the federal, state, and local level. That's special OEM partnerships and discounts. When you look at barrier number 2 around charging, that's ensuring that there's not only EV charging placed in neighborhoods, either low income or disadvantaged community neighborhoods, but also to make sure that there is access to those chargers. And then certainly last but not least, there's a big opportunity for more education. In fact, we know from our work at Veloz that our disadvantaged community or low income community population or segment is very interested in busting myths around EVs, very interested in learning more. So the opportunity is really ripe for doing more education. And I would also note that we're here talking about light-duty vehicles, the Mustang Mach-e, the Ford F-150, but there are other modes of electric transportation. There's e-bikes, there's e-scooters, you see them all around New York City. Let's not forget about walking and human power, and so I think we need to think very broadly
I do a lot of
about,
that.
What's that?
I do a lot of that.
That's great. But let's think more broadly about how we move people and goods and what the best solution is from a zero-emission perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with the equity, part of what we're doing is trying to help that with the initial cost of ownership, and then also, as you mentioned, with the total cost of ownership downstream. That is equity. That is something that people can now invest in and then use it as part of their business model if they're a small moms and pops shop and really get somewhere. So I think that entry pricing, as you mentioned, is a big deal, and we're trying to take advantage of the technological advancements and the prices coming down and passing that on to our customers.
That's amazing. Well, I think, really to move the needle and make any progress on the climate issues that we face, we really need everybody to join in on it. But I think a lot of people feel powerless because of the enormity of the problem, and paralyzed by it. What would you say, to somebody who's questioning, whether or not they can make a difference?
Well, definitely everybody can make a difference. I think it just starts with you, and any little thing that you do, whether it's recycling at home, whether it's choosing a zero-emission vehicle. And once you choose that zero-emission vehicle, educate your family and friends about the benefits of the vehicles and what they can, bring to society and help reduce emissions and climate and help with climate change. I think if all of us work together, that's how we're going to accelerate the movement to a zero-emissions future.
So Jimmy, I have 3 small kids, and I think they play Frozen on loop. And so there's a song in there that says, do the next right thing. And I think that's what we need to do is look for the small steps that we can take to actually individually make a difference. And today we're talking about electric vehicles, right, which is a portion of the pie. And I would say that hopefully all of you are believers, hopefully you're activists and advocates. I think the opportunity is go get an electric vehicle, drive one, step on the accelerator, go grab a bunch of friends, go take a drive and realize that it's more than just what we're talking about. It's a better way to drive, from performance to fuel efficiency to the look and feel. Usually they're tech forward. I mean, the list goes on and on. You can tell I'm a believer. So, you know, I think, you know, go to electricforall.org, take our I'm Going Electric pledge, sign up to our electricforall.org.
Electricforall.org.
And you can take our I'm Going Electric pledge. That's a simple step. Sign up for our newsletter. But really, just say to yourself, you're going to take a step and do it. And when it comes to transportation electrification, share with your friends what you learned today, go take a drive, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I would just, you know, lastly say that although we've been talking about, you know, the polished version, people have lots and lots of questions. And so Veloz is on a mission to do myth busting. So whether it's questions around charging or whether it's questions around cost or what vehicles are available, are these things sustainable from cradle to grave, go look it up on electricforall.org and let us know what questions you have.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, I'm with you. Definitely go drive one because it's a lot of fun. But you know, if I think about what each and every one of us can do, right? I take us back to kind of the personal responsibility that, you know, my parents taught me around, you know, making sure that we meet our own needs, but also balancing those resources around us, whether it's personal or whether it's extending to kind of the shared assets. And I think this is exactly what we're talking about. We're all utilizing those assets, so we all have a role to play in terms of being able to do a little bit more. And it doesn't take a lot, right? I think if everybody chipped in and did their personal bit, that would have a significant impact. And you know, it's easy to do because some of it is just simple things like Cynthia mentioned around recycling and personally helping with that, reusing and reducing, or it's, you know, from a transportation perspective, take advantage of the technological advancements that we have and the fact that, you know, there are engineered products that are sustainable, but also better solutions, and really leverage that, because I think that, as I mentioned earlier, it is a pivotal point right now in the industry where it all starts to make a lot more sense, and therefore it makes it much easier for everyone to make that cultural shift to the EV and do a bit more for our planet.
No, I have to say thank you so much for your time and enlightening me, and hopefully the audience here. I think Ford's really lucky to have you too, and Josh, it's great to hear what you're doing. So thank you very much for your time. And I just wanted to close by saying, you know, I think that, you know, what Ford's doing is just an incredible model. I mean, I think we need all of these companies, whether it's just in the automotive industry or outside of it, to be thinking about these things. And I think that, you know, by learning more about it, we can all do something to help try to resolve this issue that we're facing. So thank you very much for staying through this.